And our first game was Animal Kingdoms, and we have some other things that are going on that have not been announced because announcements are not something I do, I guess, until it's like right before things. I can just keep talking, or somebody can like say comments or something, and then we'll get a question, and then I can ramble on about that. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I would kind of assume somebody would say that they can't hear me if they can see me talking, and they couldn't hear, but who knows. So questions, or I could keep rambling. I really like doing solo design. I've done it on 5 games, maybe more. For me, it's like the easiest kind of design because I just need to like sit down and do it, and then I can play the game, and then I can iterate, and then I can play the game, and I don't need anyone else. I can just do it, and it just gets better in a couple hours. Or like with other games, I have to like have other people there and get their opinions and watch them and try to figure out what they're thinking. And with me, I just know what I'm thinking, so solo design is really easy. Um, there's so many uh, things. Okay, um, sorry, there's a scroll bar that didn't scroll. Tell us a bit about the prep for Kickstarter. Okay, and hello for people from Egypt and other places. Tell us about the prep for KS. Okay, that is a lot of things that you need to do. I typically start prep for Kickstarters 3 or 4 months in advance. You really need to plan it that far out because you need to contact reviewers, because there's a lot of reviewers out there, but usually the people that you want to review your games, you have to, well, give them the game, and most of them need at least a month, meaning you have to mail the prototype more than a month in advance, meaning you have to have the prototype more than a month and a half in advance, and that means the art has to be done before that. I get my stuff printed partially at Print and Play, just because I like them a lot more than Game Crafter. They do more stuff than Drive-Thru Cards. Drive-Thru Cards is also cool. But Game Crafter typically hits you with a like penalty for ordering like 10 or 11 copies of things, so it's like, but I'm paying money for things and I don't want to like wait extra because I got more stuff, you know. But yeah, so a lot of that is just making sure reviewers have the good game with that's all pretty, with art, etc. But you also have to play with the good art because sometimes terrible things happen. Like you can see a card and you see it on the screen and it looks really pretty and great, and then you play with the card and you're like, whoa, this has super accessibility issues and that's terrible. So you have to get things reprinted, which takes time. Like even though Print and Play says that they get it to you in like 48 hours turnaround, that's like 48 hours to print and then to send, and also it costs money, so like it's time. But yes, and like it's not great just to give reviewers a month. It's usually better to give them at least 2 months. So yeah, and that's from a reviewer standpoint. Oh, and you also have to blind playtest rules, because you do not want to find out that somebody can't understand your rules when you're like reading their review after they spent like all this time and energy like playing the game, and you're like, actually you got this major thing wrong because I don't know, it's hard to write rules, and that's really sad, and people don't really like that. So you have to do a lot of blind playtesting, and in my experience, blind playtesting takes like 3 times as long as you think it will take, because words are hard. Words are really hard. I'm getting a lot better at writing rules, but there's all these different kinds of player types when they're reading rules. Like there's players that don't look at images. okay. And it's like, but why wouldn't you look at this helpful image that has a diagram and tells you things? And it's like, they just don't look at that. And there's people that don't look at anything that like says note or very important, which is, why wouldn't somebody look at this very important note in the rules? I don't know. There's people that, like, if there is a paragraph that's more than a sentence, they will not read that. So trying to get like the rules to be really good with only a very like with dealing with all that so that the players can all play it correctly is a lot of time. But usually, like, while things are printing, like in that like 2 months period of time, you can get the rules pretty well. What other prep for Kickstarter? Oh yeah, you have to do interviews and stuff. So podcasts, how they work is people record them, but then they have to edit them. And editing could take like 3 to 4 times the amount of time that the podcast was. So like if you record for a half an hour, it could take like 2 or 3 hours to edit. And not everyone has a lot of time, so you have to do a lot of interviews way up front, like a month before, so that the podcast will be ready by the time you actually want to launch. And what other things? You have to like make press lists and stuff. And what this is like I use the same press list, like base press list for all my games, and those are all like the board game people that should know about board games. But for like my latest one, Big Easy Busking, we were researching New Orleans because people in New Orleans might like the game, or people that like music, or more things in Huntsville because there's a lot of people that like local things, and just trying to get more and more people because every Kickstarter is actually seems to be harder than the last one just because there's so much more competition. So you have to up your game every time. Yes, I'll get back to that if I can find out any more prep stuff. Or if anyone has any questions on those things or knows that I forgot things. Oh, the Kickstarter page. The Kickstarter page is so hard because, like, one, you need a bunch of graphics, and unless you're a graphic designer, which I'm not, that takes a lot of time. But I also like to do GIFs, and the GIFs I make in PowerPoint because, again, I'm not skilled as an artist. I am bad. I can use Paint, and I've been gaining skills in Illustrator and InDesign, but it's mostly like moving things around and not making the pretty things. So like the GIFs themselves take a while. Like if you're good at PowerPoint, which I'm relatively okay at PowerPoint, you still need to get like all the animations and what they're doing and then put it in front of people and see if they understand it, because again, like words are just hard. And you iterate back and forth to make sure the Kickstarter page is like perfect, and then like people make all these comments and then the Kickstarter page gets super long, and then it's like, well, now it's too long and I have to like cut back on things and all that. And making the Kickstarter video, I used to do the videos myself, but when I am doing a video, my face doesn't move in the correct manner, so I have to like do 20 takes, and then it's like, well, I did 20 takes, there must be a good take where my face moves in a natural way-ish. And it's an okay video, but it's not great. But now I have a person that does it, and it's great. His name is Rev. Well, actually, I don't know what his name is. I call him Rev. But he's great at things. And has done a lot of videos. So ask me about this later and I'll get you his contact info, because like not having to make the video, like that's a whole like day of work, and then editing and like doing the voiceovers and whatnot. So yes, a lot's going on. There's also ads. Like you have to try to make up all your ads and start running them so that by the time your Kickstarter is going, you have the good ones and you know which ones are the good ones. And I don't know, ads are always so different and weird, but you have to have them, and you have to have all the different sizes for all the places you're going to put the ads, etc. Next one. How do you stay disciplined in the development of games? I'm not really sure what that is saying. How how do I stay disciplined? Well, like for developing a game, I really enjoy it, so it's not really something I have to be disciplined on. I have to make sure that I write everything down. So I'm working on, I don't know, like 10 games because I get a new game idea every time I go on a road trip because I'm in the car and I make up a new game. Um, so what I do is I have a bunch of notes on my phone, and I've learned that every time I go to a prototyping convention, I should bring, at least one game per day, if not a lot more than that. So for Protospiel Atlanta, which was the last one I went to, I got ready as many games as possible because I wanted to get the most out of it, and I ended up playtesting on 9 different games, which was, whoa, like so intense. But I was only able to do that because I had more than 9 games. So like when people came up and were like, hey, let's play a game. And I was like, what kind of game do you want to play? Let's play the one that fits you, because not everything, like, you can't just play any game with any playtesters. Like, they have to be in the right mindset and be the right kind of person for that game. But when you are playtesting, it's really important to make sure to like get all the feedback, write it down, and not make like decisions right now. Like there's a lot of things that happen in your mind. Like I will get the feedback and my immediate thing is like, no, you're wrong. But like if you just say no, you're wrong to people, that's really bad. So if you write it all down and then like the next day go through it and be like, oh, okay, so we had 3 people say this thing about it, and initially I was like, this isn't a big deal, but if 3 people said it, then it must be a big deal and I should really look at it. But it also, like, if you put in that time, it lets you like distance yourself from the whole like, this is my baby of a game and I love it, to like, okay, this is not a baby, this is just a thing I'm working on, and I'll be able to get better feedback or like better development on this if I listen to the feedback and actually incorporate it when it's necessary. There's some people that say feedback, well, especially other designers, where you have to kind of come to terms with the whole, like you're making a certain game, and some designers will give you feedback on the game that they would make, which is not the game you want to make, if that makes sense. So writing it all down also gives you like, you get to see all the feedback over a long period of time, to see like how many people actually said you should do this thing or whatever. Like if only one person ever said it in all your playtests, it's probably not that important. But yes, a big part about, I think the discipline part for me is actually having things ready, because like I have to do all these updates on games, but when? There's all these things that I have to do otherwise. But I'm always usually ready when I have a like Protospiel Atlanta or an Unpub event or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay, I actually need to sit down, develop these games, incorporate the feedback so that I'm ready. I would say like at least 2 weeks before your event, like start making a plan of like what games you want to do what to, and make a big list. I like Todoist for that, just because Todoist is a great way that will, 1, I will remember all the things, but 2, then I'll actually do them. So yeah. But yeah, you have to have like a lot of different hacks so that you don't have to actually remember things, because I went to Unpub and I wrote things down, but I didn't look at them for a couple of my games. And now at this point, I was looking at my notes and I'm like, I have no idea what these notes mean. I took them at 9 p.m. when we started playing, and now they are meaningless. So you really have to make sure, like, when you do take notes, you don't take too long to actually incorporate the feedback, because especially if you're like me where you just forget. It's like, I don't know. I guess we'll just play this again and see if I can like put some context on the notes I gave. Or you could be like certain people that I've playtested with where you just record it. So that gives you context. Kathleen said congrats on Geek of the Week. I was so excited because I've never been Geek of the Week. So that was really cool, and I got to answer some weird questions, which are great. And one of the questions made me like want to do more board game design challenges, because like somebody asked what kind of content creation I wanted to do, and I was like, well, if I had time and endless money, I would just like put down components, and then I'd get a group of people that I really liked, and we'd just design a game right then and there. And I was like, I could do that kind of, not with all the different people, but I could just be like, okay, I have a whole Saturday, we're going to design a game. So yes. How did you prepare for the relaunch of Big Easy Busking? That was a lot. I actually have a big list in our the canceled thing about like all the things that needed to be done. I hired Anna Maria, who is great. She got a marketing plan together and found a bunch of different people we could approach for New Orleans and music and a bunch of different things. And she also helped with the prep, like doing Instagram stuff and images and a lot of stuff. I highly recommend her because she's fantastic. It just took a bunch of stuff off my plate so I could focus more on things. I also got some of the art fixed, or at least tried to get most of the fixes in. I'm like blanking on all the stuff. Like a lot of it was art. Oh, getting more reviewers. So I got a number of reviewers, like new ones. I had asked all the old reviewers to like send on their games on, but first I had to find new reviewers, which it was kind of like a logistics thing. Actually, like I don't know if I recommend like having a set of reviewers and then having another set of reviewers and trying to get the games to go to the right places, because I think 3 games were just lost. I don't know how the mail works, but like I wish I knew where those games were because they're just gone. And you have to kind of like keep track of where things are, because I think I lost like a week or 2 with one reviewer because I was like, oh yeah, it got sent. It got sent to you. Do you have it? Do you have it? It's been a while. Do you have it? Like, he must have it, right? Like, the mail just goes, but then he didn't, so yeah, that was a sad moment when I was like, well, 3 of them got lost, and I guess I'll just have to acknowledge that they got lost and try to fix it in some way. So yes, more reviewers, more interviewers. I did a bunch of interviews. I'm still doing interviews and stuff. I'm doing this now, yay. Yes, lining up all the interviewers and making sure like, I was also helping Josh get interviews. So I was like following up with all the people that I had scheduled him interviews with before and making sure that they actually happened and seeing if they want to do an interview with me, etc. So that was a lot. And just making the page better, because the original Big Easy Busking page was written how I typically write, where at one point in my life I did a lot of writing for government contracts, which is so dry and boring, and I don't even know if anyone ever like read all of those documents I spent years of my life on. But I'm a really good like government technical writer, which means that I'm really bad at like writing things that people want to read. So that was the first Kickstarter page. So I went through and I tried to really like humanize my writing, because I don't write like I write, I guess, like a robot or something. I really dull. So I had to go through that and iterate and get people to read it and see and like shorten it a bunch, because I realized that the how to play on a Kickstarter page doesn't need to teach somebody every single rule, because if you do that, like people see it and see how long it is, and they're used to actually seeing like short how to plays, like just like here's some stuff, and they assume that there's more to it. So like when they see the really long thing, there's like, oh, this must be super complicated, there must be so much she's not saying, even though I said everything. So yes. But I think it's way more human language right now, and that's just some of the stuff we did for Big Easy Busking. Oh, my favorite part was making a playlist because we have a Spotify playlist for it. And I spent like a whole day just listening to different jazz music, and that was exciting. And now I have a playlist of like all these jazz and blues and other New Orleans things. I think every artist was from New Orleans except for some songs that were from Princess and the Frog. Is that it? Yes. I think that's the Disney movie that was set in New Orleans with Tiana. Because I like that movie, so I had to incorporate it into my playlist. Um, it's set in New Orleans, so it's somewhat relevant a little bit. Okay. Is there particular game recommendations that can be used in adult training, such as communication, time management, business skills, etc.? So I used to be the team building coordinator at my last job. So this is a good thing for me. One of the really good games, not strictly a board game, but it was like a computer game, video game, if you will. Don't Stop Talking or Everyone Explodes. It's some words in there like that. But that one's really good to try to get you to like communicate better. We also did, it was an app like Space Team, I believe, where you had to like communicate over other people, like you're all people on a rocket and you each have to do your own task, but like sometimes you're given a goal that you can't actually complete, so you have to like tell somebody else to do it and like get things to happen while everyone else is also trying to get things to happen. The Mind was great. So my coworkers loved it, but every time I would like leave and they'd play, they'd figure out a way to cheat. And like they'd figure out like, oh, if you say like if you do this, it means like more than 5, and if you do this, it means it's less than 5. And so like it kind of got them to really like look at each other, like you look at each other's faces and try to read the verbal cues because you can't talk in that one. So I thought that was awesome, and it's also like pretty cheap for what it is. And any like escape room games, like all the escape rooms, especially the unlocks, I would say are great, just because unlock is different in that you don't destroy it, you can pass it on to the next team, and if your company has like lots of different teams like that. I'm trying to think of that other one. I think it's like Two Rooms and a Boom. I've heard is really good for that, but I bought it, but I never actually implemented it. But a lot of co-ops. I played Pandemic Legacy Seasons 1 and 2 with my coworkers, and it was really great just because it's a co-op. We're all trying to do something, but there's also a story, so people were really engaged. That could get kind of expensive because you only have one game for a group of 4. So yeah. And the next one. Yes, not making the video would be so good. It's like, this is just done and you don't do it, and somebody else did it for like a reasonable price. Do you outsource other things besides Kickstarter videos that you find is worth the cost? So far, well, I outsource illustration, graphic design, videos, marketing. Well, Anna Maria, I would say, is good for marketing. How to play videos? I really recommend outsourcing that. Well, if you're not good at video, I'm not good at video. I do not know how to edit a video, and getting someone else to do that is fantastic. For people, Bebo does great how to play videos. They're really engaging. She has a great audience. She also dresses up, and they're really fancy. I'd also recommend Girls Game Shelf for doing how to play. This is the first time I've had Kiki do a video for me, but she was great, and it was like really short. Short is really good because if somebody sees, oh, this how to play video takes 22 minutes, so it must be a complicated game. But Kiki, I think she did her how to play in like 6 minutes, and Bebo, when I had her do videos in the past, it was like 4 minutes or something like that. So both of them I would highly recommend for videos. Other things I've hired people to do. Not with a Kickstarter, I don't think. Some marketing things. I have paid for previews in the past, and I don't know if I'd recommend that. I do a lot of analytics, so when I get a reviewer or an interviewer or anyone that's part of their campaign that's going to help out, I give them a very specific link, and that link tells me like if people click on it, if they back the campaign. So I know if somebody goes to Kiki's video and they click the link and then they back the game, and I know how many people did that and on what days and when, etc. So when I've done the paid previews, they don't tend to be better than the non-paid previews. But there's also that whole thing where maybe somebody found the campaign page based on something else, and they see like a paid previewer, and they get like they get to know the video or they see the quote and they get to back because of that, because they trust that person. Because you never actually know why somebody backs that campaign. Maybe they read 5 reviews and the 5th review just got the like benefit, like I thought it was the 5th because of that's what the analytics said it was, but you can't tell exactly what it is. So yeah. Oh, and I also do I pay a pledge manager. If that counts. I think I'm going to be trying the new pledge manager that's free though, so maybe the free one will be better, but we'll see. What type of games do you want to make? So this is I think I can answer it. Yeah. So I try to make really engaging games. Like I really like to play games because I like to be around other people, and like it makes it a lot easier to be like social and stuff. So I like games where it matters what other people are doing and I want to pay attention to other players. I do not like games that feel like they're like multiplayer solitaire. I also like to create games that are really accessible, and what I mean by that is that not that the game is like super easy, but that somebody can come in and they can learn it in not that long of a time, and then they can relearn it easily. You don't have to have played a lot of games to play the game. I try to do it through things like having really good graphic design, reference cards, making things like really clear and easy, having them be colorblind friendly. Which not only helps colorblind people, but it helps like everyone. If you can just look at the table and see the board and know that that cube is black, and you don't have to wonder, oh, is that a black cube or is that a dark blue cube? Because every time you are thinking about something like that, that takes you out of the fun. So I try to make it like really distinct. This is this color. Don't even worry about it. And then you're just focused more on the fun. And I also try to take out any memorization or anything like that, which is why I put like a quick start guide at the end of all my games, so you can really quickly, like you don't have to go through the whole book when you're playing again. You just do the quick start guide, you look at your reference card, you can just get into the game and go. So with being accessible, I also try to have it be strategic, where there's like depth to the game, where you might try one strategy one game and then you can try a different strategy the next game and a different strategy from there, just because like one, I want games to be really replayable, but also I don't want you to like just play it once and be like, well, I solved it, so this is how it is. And I also don't want it to be like where there's one strategy where you'll just win if you do that. Like it has to depend on like, oh, what comes up, what is a certain game about, like who are the people that are playing with. There has to be something that makes different strategies better at different points in time. Yes. Well, and I mentioned replayability, but I try to add in a lot of replayability. If you want to specifically hear about Big Easy Busking, I wrote a big article on like all the ways I tried to make that more replayable, just by making like the numbers vary a lot, making changes with the song cards. I I made ability cards where each game you have a certain ability and you can try to take advantage of that, but each game it's different. So it would lend to different strategies based on what abilities, so you have to kind of compensate for different things like that. At the moment, I've been trying to make smaller box games, mainly because, well, one aspect of accessibility is price. If you want to get the game out to a lot of people, you have to have a lower price point than you would otherwise. So hopefully, like, I'm actually trying to like go even smaller than I did. Stellar Leap, which was the second game I designed, was like a big 4X game. And that was great, and I had a lot of fun, but then I was like, let's go smaller. And like after working on a couple small games, I'm like, let's go even smaller and see if we can do anything with that. Just because it's also the logistics, because I'm both a designer and a publisher, I have to think about how are we going to ship this? How much is it going to cost to ship? Is it going to fit in a flat rate box? Am I going to ship it myself? Etc., etc. So yes, smaller is better. Also in the whole like iterating point of view, like for Stellar Leap, I had I think 10 different card types. So you have to like iterate on all those different card types and make sure like that they're all good and balanced, etc. And if there's 10, that means like you have to do a lot of playtesting. I also like to go for like shorter games because, well, I personally like to play like 3 or 4 games, different games in a night. But if you could play a game like over lunch or before you play another game, I think that's really cool. That being said, I also have a big weird Euro that's in progress, and well, I'll probably be working on it for a couple years, but it's all about emotions. So yes, that will go against all that because they'll have so many pieces and parts, but I think it'll all work, and I'm trying to do this thing where like it's about emotions and you're trying to like fix the emotions in the person, but it'll probably like I always do something like really weird in my games. Like for Dreams of Tomorrow, if you read the rule book, all the examples are people I know. So that's fun. Well, I hope it's fun for people and they're not creeped out by it. But I can like make different scenario decks in this Euro game based on the people that will be reviewing it, and maybe they'll think that's weird, but maybe, you know, they can solve the emotions in their own life again, you know, and I can get to know people better. So yeah. Oh, and like diversity and stuff too. So, well, I go the weird themes, but I try to make them as like diverse as possible. I guess for Dreams of Tomorrow, I did not make it diverse because I made everyone a woman. There's no men. And I don't mention this anywhere, but like if you notice it, there's just no men, and you know, whatever. I can do what I want. But one reason I did like the idea of Big Easy Busking, that was a game I signed, was that it's in New Orleans, and nobody can really complain if I put black people in there because black people live in New Orleans. So it's like, well, it represents New Orleans. That is what it is. Like, if I had any people that were arguing against it, it'd be like, go on Wikipedia, figure it out. Like, it says right there what the different ethnicities of New Orleans are. So, but going back to weird themes, like, I don't like to really work on anything that is like farming or something generic or anything like that, because, well, when I sign a game or I create a game, I'm going to be playing this game over 100 times, and I have to really think about that. Like, am I going to want to play a generic farming game 100 times in a row, over and over each day? Probably not. But do I want to play like Dinosaur Dance Crew the game every night? You know, maybe. Like, so that's why I tend to go weird themes. I don't really know how marketable that is. So as a publisher, I also have to think about that because, like Big Easy Busking, this has been the hardest campaign I've ever worked on, like funding-wise, etc. We had to cancel and relaunch because, well, there was a number of reasons that happened. But it could be too niche of a like thing where it's like street musicians in New Orleans. So if you don't like New Orleans or you don't like street musicians or something, you might not like the game. But it could also just be really fun for people that are like, yeah, I don't need another farming game or a space game. This is a different theme. So yes. Um, so yes, weird themes because I can create what I want. And what I want is weird. And like that's also the Weird Giraffe Games. I mean, you should expect weird. So yeah. Um, you work at 2 different game companies. How did you end up starting 2 game companies, and how do you balance your time and priorities across the company? Is it the same team for both game companies? Okay, so Weird Giraffe Games I started in 2016 after reading Jamie Stegmaier's blog. He said you had to do these things, and I was like, well, I designed a game, and I found his blog, so I'll just go and check all the boxes. And that company essentially got started because I didn't know you could sign games. But I do like being a publisher, so I'm glad I did that. Maybe I'd be designing like so many more games than I have already if I just focus on design, but that's in the past now. Who is a part of Weird Giraffe Games at the moment? Me, my partner Nick, and our cat Fluffins. If you follow me on Twitter, he's the black cat. He participates, like he will most likely be part of this AMA at some point in time. He, like whenever we play board games, he's at the table. When we have meetings, he's at the table. He was part of the company because he decided he was. But I also have Galactic Raptor Games. How that came to be was I was at Proto ATL last year. I got to meet Dan Letzring from Letterman Games. We had known each other online. We were part of the Indie Game Report. So we had talked back and forth, but we never met. We got to like hang out and stuff, and one of the things we talked about was how we wanted to create more games, but we just couldn't. Like there's a certain amount of games you can make as one company. Well, one company and one, like I guess 2 humans and a cat. We have a finite number of things we can do in a day. So we were like, oh, okay, if we joined together and did stuff together, then it would be half the amount of effort as doing what company would be. So we decided to try it out with Animal Kingdoms. And yeah, so we just started a company because why not start a company? Since then, I've tried to do a different thing. Like I didn't want to create so many companies for every different partnership that I had. And I tried to do a partnership with another game company, but it ended up not panning out. And we were just going to do like a partnership agreement. But that didn't pan out mainly because our design philosophies are different. Like each person designs in a certain way, and I am a super positive designer, which actually frustrates some people where basically on every turn in one of my games you will get further along. You'll get closer to the goal, you'll get more resources, you'll get more stuff. You can't take away things from other people, which bothers some people. So I'm that kind of designer, and if you are not that kind of designer, like us working together just isn't good. Like, so we were like, I would play test and do a change, and then they would play test and do a different change, and it would like, I'd be like, okay, let's go over here. And they'd be like, actually, let's go over here. And I'd be like, okay, I'll deal with that, but let's go over here. And it was just over and over, like we were just taking this game like back and forth and back and forth. And like, it got better and different, but neither of us were happy. So if you are trying to find somebody to partner up with, maybe make sure that you each know your designer type. I don't know, like there's a lot of different types. Like I also build. I like to build stuff, and at the end of the game, in a lot of my games, I want you to be like, whoa, I did this thing. I'm going to take a picture. And so you can be like proud of whatever thing you built during the game. And other game designers are like, okay, let's build it up and trash it. Build it up and trash it. So that's also a certain type of designer as well. So make sure when you partner, your designer things mash up correctly. But how do I balance my time and priorities? Well, it depends on the project and what we're doing and what the different things are. With Galactic Raptor, me and Dan, we started off with this idea of what we would each be doing, but then it didn't end up like that. Like, we've each chosen different things depending on, which one was more busy at the time. So, like, I have worked on developing a lot of our future games just because I go to a lot of conventions, so I meet up with the designers and we like playtest and do these other things, or I go to this other convention and playtest. So I've been doing a lot of development, whereas Dan, like for our first game, we both developed concurrently. So it's just however it goes is what task happens. But as far as like priorities, it's like, well, when Animal Kingdoms was on Kickstarter, Animal Kingdoms was the most important thing. And like right before the Kickstarter, when we were doing all the prep, that was the most important thing. And then because Dan does a lot of the manufacturing stuff, once the Animal Kingdoms Kickstarter ended, it was like, okay, I can do something else because he's going to be getting the manufacturing lined up. I can just be there to like answer questions like when things come up, but I don't have to do a lot. Like I did the pledge manager because I do that. But it's just whatever is most needed for what company at that certain period of time. I have a lot of different lists in Todoist with each different project I'm working on. And I also have this thing in Google Keep where I try to like plan the week, and I put all the like big tasks on there, like, oh, I want to make sure to dedicate a lot of time to like promoting the Kickstarter, but also doing these interviews and also getting the Galactic Raptor mail down. So based on what I think is important for that week, that's how I prioritize the different tasks between the different companies. And if things come up, it's like, will Carla do it? Will Dan do it? Will Nick do it? I don't know, but someone will do it or we won't, and it'll fall through the cracks. But then somebody will realize that it fell through the cracks and we'll get it done anyway. But it is definitely a work in progress because working with other people is a learning experience. And you have to figure out how you work together, and also circumstances change and every day is different, I guess. Like me and Dan are both doing campaigns right now. He has a Matryoshka, which is probably how you say that, maybe. And Nick always has to pretend like he's not here until he is here, so whatever. But yes, so we both have these campaigns going on, but luckily we have everything done. We're just waiting for China to get the first proof back, so neither of us really have to do anything. So luckily things just work out sometimes. So, and is it the same teams for both companies? So Dan is on Galactic Raptor and Fluffins is not. Fluffins is dedicated to Weird Giraffe Games. He will playtest the Galactic Raptor games, but that's not his goal in life. He's also at Tabletop Cat. And I will have an intern soon that will be managing Tabletop Cat because Fluffins has a very busy social life, but he sits in a lot of game boxes and reviews a lot of games. So that is a thing you could follow on Twitter, is my cat. Is there a game that helps in teaching the use of emotions when designing games? Helps in teaching the use of emotions? I'm not really sure. I don't have an answer to that. The use of emotions. Maybe the mind, just because you have to like look at somebody's face and see, like, try to figure out what they're feeling. Like if they want you to draw, like put your card down, or if they think like they're gonna, like, who needs to put the next card down. For people that don't know, the mind is when you have a hand of cards and they have to go down in order. There's no doubles, but you also can't talk at each other. And somehow if you are just in a group together, you can just do this, and it's magical and different. So I would say if anyone is about teaching the use of emotions, it's that one. But maybe I read that question wrong. Maybe there's also the cards where it's like the game of lenses. It's something. Someone on this live stream probably knows what I'm referring to, which is there's a book, but there's also like a tarot card deck of things where it's just different game design stuff, where it's different things to think about when you're game designing, and some of those cards deal with different emotions. So it's kind of it's a game to design games. And that's also, I used it at work while we were designing software. So we had to like think about how these different things dealt with the software. So I feel like it's a deck of lenses, but I can check after this what it actually is, but I recommend that. What kind of marketing things do you outsource, and do you recommend any freelancers? I actually talked about this. So, Anna Maria, she's fantastic. I love working with her, and she's great. The things that she did were the things I didn't want to do, so it depends on who you are. I'm not great at Instagram, but Anna Maria is, so that's what she did. She also helped with ads and other things that I've probably already mentioned. Oh, getting lead lists and stuff. Like, I like to focus more on like the game design and game heavy stuff. So when I was talking to her and she mentioned she could get lead lists and have a marketing plan, I'm like, great. I don't have to do that. But yeah, it really depends on what you like to do and who you know and things like that. So how do you celebrate being funded on Kickstarter? Today I exercised more than I've been exercising because usually when I'm on Kickstarter and I'm not funded, I'm just freaking out the whole time. I'm like a ball of stress, and I'm so stressed all the time until it gets funded, and I don't do things that I should normally do, like exercise. Well, it's really important for me to exercise because I have arthritis, but like the first 2 or 3 days of the Kickstarter, I just did not. So my legs basically stopped working, which was really sad. But today, when it funded, I was like, well, I'm just going to exercise for another 2 hours because that's really helpful for me. And it's also nice. I do video game exercising. So like, I'm one of those like, I don't know if it's like a type A person or whatever, where every minute of the day needs to be like super productive or else I hate myself. So I am allowed to play video games if I'm also exercising. So it's like a double like, yes, exercise, which gets the endorphins, but also video games. Usually I also have like a cheesecake that is just waiting there, and then I can like eat it all when the campaign funds. But I'm also like on a diet now, so I'm not going to just eat a whole cheesecake, which is like, it is what it is. So whatever, maybe I'll eat a cheesecake later, or I have like a bunch of those mug cakes where those are really nice because like you just stir it and put it in the microwave and then you have cake. So I might have one of those, but also like stop like being really super focused and angry and etc. Maybe I'll do less live streams because I do like a certain number of them a day, but then they freak me out because like, I don't know, I get even more stressed. So I guess the answer is I'll stop stressing out so much, and then life will just get better. Okay. There is a great game design talk about board game as emotions. Yes. Wrap up question. Any lessons learned or watch outs from your current Kickstarter? I think one of the major lessons was that really like before you start working with people is like get references and stuff, because sometimes it works out. Like I didn't get any references on Anna Maria and she was great. But other people I didn't get references on and they're like not part of the project anymore and not doing anything, and it's like really frustrating and bad, and it makes me angry, and whenever I get angry I'm not being productive, which is it's the worst. But really, before you start working with somebody, like make sure that they're good people to work with, but also that you can work together well. I know that I am not the most easiest person to work with. I am very particular. I am very honest. And what I mean very honest is I never tell lies ever. Ever. Like, I don't mean to, like, and I will say exactly what I mean, which kind of freaks people out sometimes. I'm not sure why. Probably because most people are not, like, completely honest, like, 24/7. But whatever. And you just have to make sure like that your two ways of communication really jive together. Um, so yes. And how you do that is maybe like do something small before you sign the major contract, before a lot of money has passed hands. Like really go over what you like if you want somebody to do something for you, say it in a way and then be like, oh, okay, so I've said what I want you to do. Can you just say in different words back at me what you comprehended that I asked you to do? Because sometimes those answers are different from each other, which is what it is, but like just communicating in general is really hard with different people. Like it's not their fault. It's not, well, it could be my fault. I don't know. But I'm just saying it's hard. So if you have trouble like communicating with others, just give yourself a break. Like try again, say it in a different manner. Like always assume that people are trying to do their best. They just like, it's that whole communication thing. Like you said some words and they heard words, but maybe they didn't hear the right thing. So always believe that people are trying, the benefit of the doubt and whatnot. Um, so yes, that. Um, and, well, I did the whole relaunch thing with this Kickstarter. Be okay with, like, pushing back. Like, try to be, like, really realistic on what is happening and, you know, what the current status of a project is. Like, don't just launch a Kickstarter because that's the date you told everyone. You know, like, you can push it back. Even if you do launch and it's not going that well, you can relaunch later and it can fund and it'll be great. Like if you really believe in something, you can do the thing, you can make it happen, you can find people to help, um, especially the finding people to help. Um, there are other people out there. Be willing to ask questions. Like I post lots of questions in the tabletop publishers guild and the Kickstarter advice, like all the time when I'm like, maybe I know about this thing, but let's see if I actually know about this thing, and ask questions and just admit that you are a human person that can't do everything and sometimes mess up, and you know, asking for help is fine and hiring people is fine and getting like trying again and again is fine. So I guess that's I don't know, the lesson I learned every day is that I am just a human person that can do what I can do, and I shouldn't get angry at the things I can't do. So yes, thank you all for watching and for all your great questions. I hope I didn't ramble too much, and I hope you all have a great night.